D, in the interest of Delfina Meeks, we are here today set for our final in this matter. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We're live streaming. Ms. Taylor is making our record for us. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trial for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Brooks Barfield for Tessa Helms, present and ready. She is here.
Vince Nowak on behalf of Keith Meeks, and Judge, on June 14th of this year, he signed a relinquishment. And I believe Mr. Trout has that.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Delphinia.
All right, thank you all. All right, then any other announcements to make? Or are we ready to call witnesses?
I believe we're ready to call from our end, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, I would ask that the rule be invoked.
All right, I am not seeing any witnesses other than departmental people. Mr. Trout, is there anybody else that the department's anticipating on calling that's not logged in or not in the waiting room?
No, ma'am. I just have my investigator and my caseworker, Your Honor, and mother.
Okay, Mr. Barfield, I don't think there's anybody for me to lecture today.
Well, that's okay.
Okay, then. Who's going to be first, Mr. Trout?
Ms. Swihart, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Swihart, thank you. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you'll give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Very good. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Swihart, would you state your name for the record, please?
Casey Swihart.
And Ms. Swihart, how are you employed?
I am an investigator for the Department of Family and Protective Services.
And what how long have you been in that role?
Over 8 years now.
Are you familiar with the case involving the child Delfina Meeks?
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with that case?
I am the investigator that was assigned the case on June 30th of 2024.
Okay. And how did the department become involved in this case?
Actually, earlier in June, there was a case that came in from Vernon, Texas, regarding the family's home whenever they lived there. But the family had come up here later on in the month, and then that's when I had received my report that Delphinia was at the hospital with injuries.
Okay. What was your first steps with getting that information?
I contacted law enforcement and they informed me that they had the mother up at the police department, and I went to the hospital to see the child.
Okay. What hospital was the child at?
Northwest Texas.
Okay. And when you got there, were you able to see the child?
Yes, I was.
Okay. How old was the child?
I'm sorry?
How old is the child?
At the time, she was 3.
Okay. What did you notice when you entered the room or when you first saw the child?
When I first saw her, I noticed that there were several bumps, bruises, scratches, even some burns to her on various parts of her body.
Okay. Did you receive exhibits that I sent out?
Yes, I did.
Okay. During your visit with the child, did you photograph the child?
I did, yes.
Okay. Do you normally photograph children during your investigations?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So you're familiar with the way the camera works and how it is saved?
Yes.
Okay. Was it an adequate camera that you were using to photograph this child?
Yes, it was my state issued phone.
Okay. Could you look at exhibit number 7 for me?
Okay.
Do you recognize, in exhibit number 7, there's about 5 photographs.
Yes.
Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Were these the photographs that you took?
Yes, they are.
Were these photographs that you sent to me?
Yes, it is.
Have these photographs been altered in any kind of way?
No, they have not.
Do these adequately represent what the child looked like on the day that you saw her?
Yes.
And these are pictures that you personally took of this child.
Yes, they are.
Can you tell me what the first picture in exhibit number 7 is?
This is Delphinia's face straight on. She's looking at my phone when I'm taking this picture.
And what did you notice about her?
Your Honor, at this time, I don't think they've been admitted into evidence, so I'm going to object. There's facts, not evidence, before we start testifying as to what's in the photographs.
All right, Mr. Trey, do you intend to offer those?
Yes, ma'am. I'll ask to go ahead and admit them as the photographs that Ms. Hart testified to in exhibit number 7.
Okay, they were all in 7, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
objection.
Okay, petitioner's exhibit 7 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Swihart, on exhibit number 7, the first photograph, what did you notice about Delphina when you first saw her and took this photograph?
She has a lot of dried blood in her mouth that is crusted to her lips. She has a mark on her forehead right close to her hairline, and her cheeks are flushed from being red.
Okay. Was there anything else on her face that you noticed in this one?
There's also a very faint mark on her cheek that slowly was developing to show more prominent to be what appeared to be a handprint.
Okay. The second photograph in exhibit number 2, what is that photograph?
That is a close-up of her facing to the side so that I could see more of her cheek. And you can see the outline of what appears to be fingerprints or finger marks.
Okay.
Daniel, you said exhibit number 2 just then.
Sorry, this second photograph in exhibit number 7. And then the third photograph in exhibit number 7, what is that?
That is her completely facing the side to get a full side profile picture of her cheek.
Okay. The fourth photograph in exhibit number 7?
I had the nurses help me. They opened her mouth up a little bit so that I could take a picture of just how much dried blood was in her mouth and was crusted even to her teeth.
Okay. And the fifth picture in exhibit number 7?
That was a red mark that she had in her hair on the back of her head, and it was a little bit swollen at the time.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. You have exhibit number 8 in front of you.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And are these also photographs that you personally took
Yes, they are.
and what you personally observed Delphina to look like?
Yes,
You also took these on this same camera as exhibit number 7.
that's correct.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 8 as photographs that Ms. Swihart took.
No
Any
objection.
objection?
No objection.
No objection.
All right, petitioner's exhibit 8 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Swihart, the first picture in exhibit number 8, what did you notice in this picture and why did you take that photograph?
I had Delphina have one of her hands kind of lifted up so that I could see there were some scratch marks to her underarm as well as on close to her collarbone.
Okay. And the second picture in exhibit number 8, what is that?
That is her armpit.
Okay. Are these the same armpits?
This is her other armpit.
Okay, all right. Did you tell me what you noticed in that picture?
It was red. It looked like there had been some chafing. That one was not quite as bad as the first one, but still marks there.
Thank you, ma'am. Exhibit number 9, same questions. Was this something that you noticed is this the how you saw the child as you entered the room?
Yes,
You also took these photos with the same camera.
that's correct.
And this is what you observed of the rest of her body.
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 9.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, petitioner's exhibit 9 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first picture of exhibit number 9, Ms. Wahar, what do you notice in that picture? What do you see?
These pictures are of her arms. This specific picture is the top of her arms, which show a pretty good sunburn that she's got, as well as scratching to her arm.
Okay. The second picture in exhibit number 9.
This is her upper arm, and it's kind of hard to see in the picture, but there is an outline of what appears to be bite marks.
Okay. And is that in the upper bicep area of the arm you're speaking of?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What the third picture in exhibit number 9, what is that mark?
These are bruising marks that she has on like her forearm, part of her arm.
Okay. And the fourth picture in exhibit number 9.
Is another picture of the top of her arm, but it's her other one to show the sunburn that she has on that arm as well.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Exhibit number 10, same question. Is this how you observed Delfina?
Yes.
And are these photographs that you took on your same state issued phone?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 10.
No objection.
All right, petitioner's exhibit 10 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. In the first picture of exhibit 10, what did you notice there and the reason for taking that photograph?
This is a bite mark that Delfina has on her side of her abdomen.
Okay. And the second picture in exhibit number 10.
Is her opposite side, but it shows to be a bruise.
Okay. And exhibit number 11. Does this exhibit represent how you observed Delfina?
Yes, it does.
And these photographs were also taken with your state issue?
That's correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 11.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
Petitioner's exhibit 11 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Wildheart, what is the first picture in exhibit number 11 and why did you photograph that?
This is of her foot that has what appears to be some type of burn mark to her ankle.
Okay. The second photograph in exhibit 11, what is that?
This is the bottom of her foot that has a pretty decent sized blister right below her toes.
Okay. And the third picture in exhibit number 11.
It was another blister, and it also showed how dirty the bottom of her feet were at the time.
Thank you, ma'am. After you photographed the child and observed her, what was your next steps? What did you do?
Well, I had recontacted law enforcement, and they let me know that they were going to be arresting mom based off of statements that she had made at the police department. So I attempted to contact the father several times. It was kind of in the middle of the night at that point. I did not have any success reaching him until later when I did speak with him.
Okay. And what was the father's name?
Let me go back to it, sorry. Keith Meeks.
Okay. And what was mother's name?
Tessa Helms.
Okay. Were you ever able to speak to the father?
Yes, I was.
Okay. How did your conversation with Keith Meeks go?
He informed me that he was not going to be able to come to Amarillo to either see or sit with his daughter while she was in the hospital. He stated he had no means of transportation to get here. He also had no means to provide for her, as their home in Vernon was under investigation with CPS for being unsanitary.
Okay. Did he, during your time on the case, did you have multiple contacts with Dad?
Yes, I did.
Okay. At any time, did he ask for any type of transportation or volunteer any kind of way to get here during your investigation?
No, he did not. He had no
Oh.
desire to come here.
Okay. And I may have interrupted you. Could you say that last part again?
He had no desire to come to Amarillo.
Okay. Did he state outside of not being able to transfer or have transportation here and his house being under investigation, did he state any other reason why he would not take care of his child at that time?
Not that I can remember if he did.
Okay. When were you able to have contact with mom?
I met with mom. I actually went to the jail to meet with her, and that was on July 2nd.
Okay. And how did, let me back up just a second. Was that after the removal?
Yes, that was.
Okay. So you asked for removal of the child based upon dad's unwillingness and unable to come get his child or care for his child, and for mom being incarcerated. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And at that time, due to the situation, you believe that was in the best interest of the child.
That is correct.
And removal was granted.
That's correct.
And did the child stay in the hospital, or was the child placed at that time?
The child stayed the night in the hospital and then was placed the next day.
Okay. And the child was placed with kinship or foster home?
It was a foster home.
Okay. Did you attempt to reach or find any family that would be able to take the child?
I did. Mr. Helms had actually given me a family member that he thought would be somebody who could be potential placement for her. I did reach out to them and they ended up telling me no.
Okay. Any other family that was given to you?
No, not at the time.
Okay. After the removal, you said you had communication with mom.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you advise her of the removal?
I did, yes.
Did you go over the reasonings of the removal?
I did, yes.
What was mom's statements as to that?
Miss Helms informed me that the reason Delphina had all of those marks, bruises, injuries to her was because she throws fits. And when she threw a fit at the park that day, she had face planted the pavement. And I asked her if all of those injuries were something that she could have done to herself. And she said, unfortunately, that's what happened that day.
Okay. Did she tell you was there any information of mom? Did mom ever admit to doing any of those marks outside of saying that she had done them to herself?
She did admit to biting her stomach in the middle of a tantrum. She said she didn't know how else to get her to calm down or to kind of snap out of her tantrum, so she did bite her on the side.
Okay. Did mom mention anything about the child? Does she have any conditions? Has she ever been tested for anything?
She did ask that she be tested for autism, and she did tell me in here that she was seen on the 20th of June to get shots and was diagnosed with a heart murmur and has problems with throwing up while eating.
Okay. What did y'all discuss the sunburns?
We did, yes.
Was mom aware that the child had sunburns?
She said no, she didn't, but she didn't put sunscreen on her because they were in the shade.
Okay. Did y'all discuss you stated about the blood in the mouth? Did y'all discuss that?
She said that was from her face planting whenever she tripped and fell and hit the ground.
Okay. What about the marks under the arms? Did y'all discuss those?
Yes, she says that she has nails, and so whenever she goes to pick Delphina up, it sometimes scratches her under the arms.
Okay. Did you talk to her about the possible handprint on the face?
Yes, I did bring it up with her and she said that she does not remember doing anything like that and does not think that she would have slapped her child.
Okay. Any of the other bruising, did y'all discuss any of that?
We discussed all of it. However, most of the injuries that were obtained, Miss Helms informed me she doesn't know where they're from.
Okay. So the only injuries that Mom mentioned she could have was the admitting to the biting.
That's-
And that she has fingernails and she scratches her on her arms when she picks her up.
That's correct.
Okay. Did y'all discuss the blisters on her feet?
Yes, and she just said that those were from her shoes and because it was hot outside.
Okay. From what you observed, looking at her feet and the blisters and how dirty they were, did it look like she had been wearing shoes to you?
It did not look like she had been wearing.
Objection, speculation.
Overall, she can testify as to what she observed.
And just for clarification with the record, I thought the question was, did it appear? Okay, never mind. You overruled my objection. We'll go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Wire, you can testify as to what your impression was.
Okay, it did not appear as though she had been wearing shoes, and it was also noted to me when I got to the hospital that night. Law enforcement had informed me that she had a pair of shoes.
Objection, hearsay.
Okay, I'll sustain. Can't tell me what law enforcement told you.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. So based upon you, Ms. Wire, again, based upon your conversations with parents, Mom was incarcerated when you spoke to her. There was nowhere else for the child to go at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you believe keeping the child in care was in the best interest of the child?
That is correct.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Perfect.
Ma'am, when was the last time you had any dealings with this particular case, except for your testimony here today?
My last contact was when I met with Mom in jail on July 2nd prior to the adversary hearing.
Okay. So you did not, based on your role in this case, you did not do any further investigation into this case?
Past that day, no.
Okay, so you ultimately, other than what the bite mark that we talked about, you didn't do any further investigation in talking to medical personnel or anything like that to determine whether these were injuries that could have been caused by Tessa's explanation of the child being outside and falling down, etc. Is that a fair statement?
No, when I was at the hospital that night, I did have several conversations with medical professionals that day.
Okay. And was that on the 2nd as well?
That was in June when I first got my case. I was talking to them on June 30th.
Okay. Did you ever receive any medical records or anything of that nature?
I did. That night they had done skeletal exams and everything came out to be cleared. All of her injuries were just to the outside of her body.
Okay. So no permanent injuries that required any type of surgeries or anything of that nature?
Not that was known at the time, no.
Okay. Now in regards to your meeting with Tessa, did you have the meeting with her just the one time in the jail?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. Novak.
No questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Vaughn.
Ms. Swihart, you said that Mom admitted to biting Delphina on the stomach.
That's correct, yes.
What did she say about the bite on her arm?
She did not know where that bite came from.
At the time that you saw Delphina in the hospital, was she right at 3 years old?
It was just after her 3rd birthday, yes.
Can you describe to me like her mobility?
She was not super mobile. I also didn't get her out of the bed. So I mean, she was able to kind of turn from side to side, but otherwise I did not observe her outside of the bed.
Is Delphinia verbal?
At the time, no. I don't know if she is now.
There was a reference in one of the reports about mom not getting medical treatment for Delphinia throughout her life. Do
Yes,
you know
that is.
where that information came from?
So that was a part of the original investigation that came in on June 9th to Vernon. And that was being investigated in Vernon.
Could you find any records of Delphinia having well checks, shots, anything?
No, ma'am.
Did mom provide any information about, I took her on these dates, this is who she saw, anything like that?
The only thing she was able to tell me was about when she took her on June 20th before this incident and said that she was given shots.
Were you able to confirm that that appointment actually happened?
That was not here in Amarillo, and I don't remember if I was able to get that information from the Vernon worker.
And that was in response to the investigation where it was alleged she had not previously given any medical treatment.
That's correct.
So after the Vernon workers became involved, that's when she went to the doctor?
That is correct.
Did mom state anything about any well child checks prior to that?
No, she did not.
So at the time, when Delphinia was in the hospital, you weren't able to assess whether she could crawl, walk, anything like that, because you didn't see her outside of the bed.
Correct.
Did mom give any explanation of who she thought bit her child on the arm if it wasn't her?
No, she did not.
Are there any records of the child being in daycare?
No.
So mom at no point said, hey, these injuries are due to some other child or something like that.
No, ma'am.
And I apologize if I've already asked you that. Was Delphinia able to communicate to you in any way?
No, she was not.
I pass the witness.
Mr. Trapp, further questions?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Swihart, at the time, that law enforcement got involved, mom and child were at a park. Is that what you stated?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And the child was in the care of mom.
That is correct.
Was anybody else involved in that care of the child at the time?
No,
Okay, it was just mom and Delphinia in the park.
that is correct.
Okay. Did mom, I know we discussed her feet and stuff earlier. Did mom state to you that she had taken the shoes off of the child?
She told me that she did take them off, yes.
Okay. And part of the report, was there an allegation that a water bottle had been thrown?
Yes,
Did you discuss that with mom?
I did. Miss Helms informed me that whenever she was frustrated because Delphinia was throwing a fit, she did throw a water bottle, but it did not hit Delphinia.
Okay, and that was what mom stated?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you know whether mom was ever charged?
I was not involved at that time, but I do know that she was, yes.
Okay. did you know what she was charged with?
Injury to a child.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 1. It's a certified copy of the indictment for injury to a child that mom was charged with.
No objection.
No
No
objection.
objection.
I think she's frozen.
I think she is.
Judge, the last thing we were doing when we noticed you were frozen was Daniel asked to admit exhibit number 1.
So I said exhibit number 1 will be admitted. Okay, sorry, I just had to get logged in differently. Okay, my apologies. So, all right, exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Swire, do you have exhibit number 1 in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Could you read what mom was charged with?
The offense.
Yes, ma'am. Start with indictment and read down from there.
Okay. Indictment in the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, the grand jurors of Potter County, Texas, duly organized and sworn as such at the July term AD 2024 of the District Court of the 251st Judicial District is and for Potter County, Texas, upon their oaths in the court at that term, present that Tessa Ann Helms, hereinafter styled defendant, on or about the 30th day of June 2024 and before the presentment of this indictment in Potter County, Texas, did then and there intentionally or knowingly by omission cause bodily injury to Delfina Meeks, a child 14 years of age or younger, by biting the child on the abdomen, slapping the child in the head, pushing the child, causing her to hit the ground, dragging the child across the ground, or a combination thereof, and the defendant had the legal duty to act, namely, she is the victim's mother.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Barfield.
I have no further questions of this witness.
All right, Mr. Novak.
No questions, Judge. Thank you.
Ms. Vala.
Ms. Swihart, did you speak with Mom Tessa Helms about Father Keith Meeks?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what did Tessa tell you about the reason why she was in Amarillo now?
She told me that she was kicked out by Keith, and that they were no longer together.
Did she make any statements about the home life with Mr. Meeks, whether it was a good or bad situation for their daughter?
She did mention that there were some arguments and possible domestic violence between the two of them prior to their separation.
Did she talk about Mr. Meeks yelling at Delfina to shut up?
Yes, and that he would call her names.
Did she make any admissions about herself calling Delfina names?
Not that I recall.
Were there allegations made that Mom was screaming obscenities at Delfina?
Yes, there were.
I'm going to object. I know I'm going to object as hearsay, Judge. There's no, I mean, who made the statements? Where were they made? I mean, I'm just going to object as hearsay.
I'll withdraw the question.
Okay.
Miss Helms made statements about Mr. Meeks yelling at Delfina, but she didn't make any admissions as to herself.
Yes, that, as far as I remember, yes.
And I want to, in your investigation, you spoke with several medical professionals at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, were the doctors able to find any medical history for Delfina?
No, they were not.
And I want to go back and just clarify one thing. I believe earlier you stated that Mr. Helms gave you a family member's name, but at that point, did you mean Mr. Meeks had given you a family member's name?
Yes, Keith is the one that provided me with that.
Okay, and that did not turn out to be a place where Delfinia could be placed.
That is correct.
When you met with Ms. Helms, was she able to provide any other names of people that could be possible placements?
No, she was not.
I pass the witness.
Okay, Mr. Trout.
No further questions for Ms. Swihart, Your Honor.
All right, counsel, anybody have any other questions for Ms. Swihart before I see if we can cut her loose?
No questions, Judge.
No question.
All right, any objection to Ms. Swihart leaving this at this time?
No objection.
No objection.
All right, Ms. Swihart, thank you very much for your time this morning. You are free to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
All right, who's your next witness?
And call Mom Tessa Helms, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Helms, if you'll raise your right hand for me. You'll need to unmute as well. Okay. All right, do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you'll give on trial today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Okay, Ms. Helms, let me just make sure, is there anyone else in the room with you?
No.
Okay, all right. You may proceed, Mr. Trout.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Helms, did you state your name for the record, please?
Tessa Helms?
And Ms. Helms, you are the mother of Delfina Meeks, is that correct?
Yes.
And you've been here and heard the testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Did you heard where it was what you were charged with, the indictment, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you plead to that case?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. Are you currently on deferred adjudication for that case?
Yes.
Okay. And you are on probation?
That's correct.
And you are on probation for 4 years?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 2. It's a certified copy of the order deferring adjudication on this case.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
We lost her again.
Okay, she fell out again, didn't she?
All right, my apologies. I don't know if my primary internet's trying to come back, or I'm not sure what the problem is. But anyway, my apologies. Mr. Trout,
Daniel just asked to admit exhibit number 2 and they all said no objection.
okay.
Do you need me to back up, Judge?
Hang on a minute. Let me just look. Yes, if you will, please just back up to, because I didn't hear anything leading up to the offer of exhibit 2.
Okay. Ms. Helms, I asked you a second ago, you did plead to this charge, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you pled to 4 years of deferred adjudication?
Yes.
Okay. And you are currently on probation for this?
Yes.
Okay. And then you're asked to admit exhibit number 2, which is the certified copy of the order deferring adjudication, Your Honor.
All right, and no one had any objections, so exhibit 2 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Helms, as part of your probation, you're not allowed any unsupervised contact with Delfina, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're also ordered to comply with Texas Panhandle Center's treatment plan, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are you currently seen going to Texas Panhandle Centers?
I dropped out of their program, so no,
Okay, so you're not complying with your probation.
not with TPC.
Okay. And you're also not complying with your family plan of service with us for the TCP either, correct?
As far as using TPC, no.
Okay. Um, where do you currently live?
Here in Amarillo.
Okay. Who do you live with?
Two roommates and my current relationship.
Okay. In that home, are there, to your knowledge, does anybody have CPS history?
Yes,
Who?
all three of them.
Okay. So you're involved in a CPS case with your child,
Yes,
and you live with three people who have CPS history.
yes,
Are there any children that live in the home?
yes,
Okay. So again, three people with CPS history, you have not one but two CPS cases currently going, correct?
technically, I guess, yes.
Okay. And you are living with other children.
Yes.
Okay. Have you had a discussion or conversation about whether you should be living with another child when you have your own cases ongoing?
Yes, my roommates are well aware of my case.
Okay. Not talking about your roommates, but with
Yes.
anybody else, with your caseworker, have you had a conversation about whether you're allowed to be around other children?
No, not thorough.
Okay. Do you believe that you're supposed to be living with other children when you're not allowed to have your own children?
Unsupervised is what is my understanding.
Okay. Is anybody in that home willing to cooperate with CPS?
As far as drug screening and all that, no.
Okay. Does anybody in that home use drugs?
No.
So why is it do you know why it's an issue to voluntarily comply with drug screening if they're not using?
My boyfriend was asked to do all services, and the roommates have nothing to do with the case as is.
Do you understand how it's hard to try to reunite when you live in a home with people with CPS history and with people who aren't willing to comply or cooperate, I guess is the better word, voluntarily to help you do that?
As far as I know one roommate does drug screening. They have random drug screening done.
Do you know why they have random drug screening done?
They work at Tyson.
Okay. Does anybody in that home have criminal history that you're aware of?
I only know of the possibility of my roommate.
And what do you mean by that? The possibility of your roommate?
It had to do with her prior CPS case. That's all. That's the only information that I've really got.
Okay. Is anybody in the home on probation or parole?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what are they on probation or are they on parole?
Probation.
Do you know what they are on probation for?
Not 100% sure. I've only had minimal conversations about their stuff. It's has nothing to do with me, so they know more about my case than I know about theirs.
Do you understand how that is concerning?
There is no statement on my probation nor theirs as to whether or not we are allowed to be around other probationees. So
That's really not what I'm asking. I'm asking, do you see where it's concerning for your CPS case? Living with people, other folks on parole or probation and having CPS history.
Not really, given the fact that I have not seen anything personally to make a judgment that they are unsafe to be around me or my children or their children for that matter,
Okay.
or
And
the children that are in the house.
are there any children, have any of the roommates or any of the three roommates, are you aware of any of them ever had rights terminated to children?
As far as one of the roommates, yes.
Okay.
One of them, he actually has the custody of the two children that are in the home.
Okay. But there is somebody that has had their rights terminated.
As far as I'm of
Yes.
knowledge, yes.
Okay. Is this a place you intend to stay?
For as long as needed.
Okay. And how long have you been in a relationship with your, I guess, boyfriend?
Yes. Since February 3rd.
Okay. Is this somebody you plan on staying with?
Yes. As far as living situation with the other two roommates, we have had discussions of possibly trying to find our own place outside of here due to the fact of several there's been some conflicts and that he doesn't want to deal with on like with them. So we've had discussions.
So there's conflict within that home?
No, not conflict within the home. It's just miscommunications and also conversations of certain things have been had and it's still not resolving.
So there's
Or
conflict
there's
between
no
the roommates.
change in behavior, essentially. But there's no conflict. We talk it out and that's all that really happens. There's conversations, but no changes. So me and him have had conversations of situation change
Okay.
to prevent
So-
conflict.
So there's conflict in the home that has not been resolved to the point.
No, there
or
is no
discussed.
conflict. There has been
Objection, Your Honor.
conversation with no change.
Objection, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Ms. Helms, hang on, you gotta let him finish his question. And y'all can't, you can't talk over each other because the court reporter can't get both of you at the same time. So let him finish his question before you start to answer.
Ms. Helms, you stated a while ago that y'all had discussed moving out of the home because there was some conflict. So there is conflict unresolved that is bringing up conversations of moving out of that home.
There's
Correct?
no dangers. There's been conversations, but no change in behavior.
So that's a yes.
If you want to call that conflict, then I guess yes.
Ms. Helms, I'm using your words. You're the one that said
Yes,
conflict.
I misspoke on which word to use. However, it is not true conflict. We've had conversations and
Objection,
there's
non-responsive, Your Honor. Question's been answered.
Sustained, so I
Um,
think we move on.
Thank you, Your Honor. When did you get out of jail, out of custody?
November 22nd of 2024, I believe.
When did you start trying to work services?
As soon as I could, I got names of places that they wanted me to go through, everything like that. Actual places.
Okay, so you started working services. Does March sound correct?
Just about.
Okay.
I had little information of where they wanted me to go.
Did you get in contact with your caseworker as soon as you got out of jail in November?
Yes, the not the day of. However, I did reach out to her that following Monday because it was a Friday,
Okay.
I believe.
But you did not start, did you get a copy of your service plans?
No, I don't think so.
Never got a copy?
No.
Did you ever sign service plans?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 4. It's a file marked copy of the service plans that were signed by Miss Helms.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
All right, petitioner's exhibit 4 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Helms, if I were to say that the exhibit that was just admitted has your signature dated July 30th of 2024, does that sound right?
July 30? No.
Okay. If your signature is on this document and beside it has a
Yes.
date of July 30th, 2024, does that sound correct?
I did sign something. I'm not sure of the date.
Okay. When you were incarcerated, did you attempt to work any services?
Parenting classes.
Did you get them done?
I did. I completed 2 different courses that they had there on their tablets.
Okay. Did you get certificates for those?
Yes.
Did you turn those certificates over? Did you turn those certificates over?
Yes, to Heidi, I believe.
Okay. And you're aware that service plans were made in order of the court, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware of the consequences if services are not worked?
Yes.
Okay. Have you completed your services?
Not entirely.
Okay. So we're a year into the case and you have not completed services.
Not to their entirety.
Okay. And right now, your plan is to stay with your boyfriend, possibly move into another home. Correct?
Yes.
He does have CPS history, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Does he have any does he have any children or was it somebody else's children?
He's got the custody of the children.
Your boyfriend does?
Yes.
Okay. Do they live in the home?
Yes.
Okay. Are you currently taking care of those children?
Alongside the roommates and him. Yes. We
Okay.
all do parenting.
I'll pass the witness at this time, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
Thank you. Tessa, now how many children currently reside in the home?
2.
And what are their names and ages? First name's fine,
Um,
since we're on YouTube. First name's fine.
Daryl, and he is 12. Alice, and she is 11 in October.
Okay, so they're school age.
Yes.
Are they verbal?
Yes.
Okay. Have they been harmed in any way since you've lived there?
No.
Okay. Have the police come to the residence? Have any reports been made by CPS? Have those children been removed?
No.
Now, there was some discussion about you pleading to the injury to a child charges. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And you are currently on deferred adjudication? Are you on?
Yes.
Okay. And are you compliant with your probation?
Yes.
Okay. How often do you meet your probation officer?
At the moment, it is twice a month, I believe.
And have you met with them this month?
This month, no.
Okay. When is your next scheduled appointment?
I believe that is on the 10th.
Okay. Is that an in-person or is that a telephonic visit?
In person.
Okay. Now let's talk about TPC. Currently, you were asked about going to TPC. Why did you stop going to TPC?
So they wanted me to start counseling services, and the entirety of my time in their program, I had not seen a counselor. So
Okay.
I dropped out and decided that I would reach out for a different counseling service.
And
And
what was the result of you reaching out for a different counseling service?
I was referred to Pace Lawson or Melissa Lawson. I've been seeing Melissa Lawson for about a month now.
Okay. And how is that counseling going?
I feel like it's been pretty good.
Do you feel you're making progress?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how many sessions have you gone to with Melissa Lawson?
An initial and I want to say 3 counseling sessions.
Okay. And do you have counseling sessions still to go?
Yes.
How many counseling sessions are currently still scheduled?
3.
Okay. And do you intend to continue going to counseling?
Yes, I did discuss that with her.
Okay. Now, during your counseling sessions, what is the focus of your counseling sessions?
Basically my case, just talking about what happened that was the start of it, and we've been discussing kind of things to look at as to make sure that I keep myself even throughout, like emotionally, to make sure that I don't have another outburst as I did that day.
Now,
Oh.
Okay. Now, do you feel that what have you learned about controlling your emotions through your counseling?
Definitely to if I become overwhelmed, to take a step back, take 5-10 minutes, just take a breather if it becomes way too much. Obviously make sure that she and my son are in a safe space before leaving to do that. And asking for help from whoever I need to ask help from, and to just do some breathing exercises. And I've also discussed with her other things that I learned in counseling prior to having her as my counselor, what I've been doing as far as that,
Okay,
reincorporating that into my life.
You mentioned that. What other things have you learned from your other counseling sessions?
I learned to journal if I couldn't figure out how to talk to somebody else about what I was feeling, essentially, to basically get it out and like out of my mind onto a piece of paper, or if I wanted to have somebody read it.
Okay. Now, in regards to a support system, do you feel you have individuals that you can go to as a support system to assist you with achieving those goals?
Yeah.
Who would that be?
I've got a friend that does not live in the home. She just recently had a child though, so I haven't had much contact with her. And my boyfriend, and my roommates. That's about it.
Okay. Now, your boyfriend, there was does he have custody of his children?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if that's by court order?
Yes.
Now, in regards to your other services, what other services, if any, other than the 3 counseling sessions, would you still need to complete to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, it is just the parenting class. I've got and I will be finished with those on the 11th.
Now, in regards to the parenting class, did you take parenting classes while you were in Potter County?
Yes.
So this is an additional parenting class.
Yes.
Okay. Have you gained or learned anything from the parenting classes?
A bit. There a lot of it due to the fact that I had done a parenting class before leaving the hospital with my daughter to begin with. We had to do parenting, and so a lot of it is mostly going over things that I already know.
Okay. Well, give me an example of what you know. What did you learn from parenting class?
We learned about like safety, like around water, and stuff like that. I think I want to say 2 weeks ago, we talked about dry drowning and stuff like that. Hazards such as chemicals that need to be put up out of reach. Another session we talked about how to take care of ourselves physically to make sure that we are well enough to take care of our children, to like
Yeah.
make sure that we are good, because if we're not good, then they're not good.
Okay. Now, in regards to all your other services, have you completed those services?
Yes.
Okay. In regards to your employment situation, are you employed?
Yes.
Where are you employed?
I work at Sonic.
And you've worked there for a while, haven't you?
Yes, since March 22nd.
Okay. And currently, are you making enough to maintain a stable living?
I'd say so, yeah.
Okay. And do you have stable housing?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have transportation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in regards to your, are you required to take any type of medications, or are you under the care of a psychiatrist or anything?
No.
Do you feel you need to be on any type of medications or anything?
No.
Okay. Is your counseling helping you cope with any mental or anxiety or depression issues that you may be experiencing?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that if you were in a situation like brought this case on, that you would react differently than you did? That in
Absolutely,
regards,
yes.
okay. Why do you feel that way?
I've just been like I don't feel as depressed, down, and anxious about everything that's going on around me. And I've also been relearning, coping and how to de-escalate my own self to try to help her de-escalate as well.
Okay. Now, also, are you currently, do you currently take drugs or drink any alcohol?
No.
And in fact, have you been drug tested in this case?
Yes.
And have you tested positive at all in this case for drugs?
No.
Do you recall when your last drug test was?
I want to
Approximately.
say early to mid last month.
Okay. Do you know the results of that test?
I have not received anything yet.
Okay.
I've actually never been contacted about any of my drug tests as
Would
far
it-
as this case.
Would it surprise you the test was negative?
No.
Okay. Now, part of your conditions of probation is they can randomly drug test you, correct?
Yes.
Have you been randomly drug tested by the probation department?
Yes. One time so far.
And how did that turn out?
Negative.
Okay. Now, let's talk about your probation order. Currently, your probation order states that pursuant to as long as CPS does not allow you around your children, you can't be around your children. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if the court lifted the restriction, that would no longer be a condition of your probation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Um, so, what other things are you having to do on probation to successfully complete probation?
Just complying with CPS and TPC.
Okay. Now, we mentioned the TPC. Have you had a conversation with your probation officer about why you have chosen to go a different route than the TPC?
Yes.
Okay. Did the probation officer file any report of violation?
No.
To your knowledge, is probation okay with you continuing with the current counselor in lieu of TPC?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, speculation on that, what probation will allow or not.
Your Honor, I believe I asked to her knowledge, are they okay with it?
Well, yeah, and I think that any further answer to that would also be hearsay.
I
Okay.
think the in lieu is what,
Okay.
Your Honor.
I'll move
Yeah.
on. I'll move on.
All right, I sustain the objection.
Okay. Now, are you asking that you be allowed to have a monitored return of your child in this case?
Yes.
What contact have you had with Delphina? How often have you had any contact, or describe what contact you've had?
At first it was via Zoom, and we were doing 30-minute sessions of just trying to talk to her and everything like that. And the last few visits I've had with her, it's been in person for an hour from 4 to 5
And where did those take place?
at the visitation house.
Okay. And is that here in Amarillo?
Yes.
Okay. And how did, in your opinion, how did those visits go?
Pretty well.
Now, how did she react to you?
At first she, mostly due to the fact that it had been such a long time that she had seen me, she was a little, but the last couple of visits, especially, she's been pretty excited about the visits.
Okay. Do you feel that with proper bonding that you will be able to completely develop that bond again?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you test, no one in the home uses drugs or alcohol?
No.
Okay. Now you mentioned transportation. What transportation is that?
There are 2 vehicles that are running, and I get transported to and from work.
Okay. And have you had any issues making it to work and maintaining stable employment?
Not really.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any physical maladies or any other type of physical issues that would prevent you from caring for a child?
No.
Do you accept and have you accepted responsibility for your actions towards Delphina?
Yes.
And do you understand the consequences if you violate probation?
Yes.
What are those consequences?
Jail time, prison time.
Okay. Is that something you want for your future?
No.
Is that something you want for your children's future?
No.
Do you feel that the services you've worked through the course of this case pursuant to your service plan have benefited you?
Yes.
Why do you believe that?
Counseling has helped me to relearn a lot of things that I had previously learned to help cope and keep my anger in check. And I've also like I've learned a few things. I've gotten a wider knowledge on like parenting and like that they're like I'm not alone in needing those services.
Now, during Delphinia's life, were you receiving any help from Delphinia's father, Keith, to raise this child?
Financially, yes.
Okay.
Physically, no.
Okay. Was he paying child support?
He would send me $250 whenever from the time I left up until I want to say December. He's continued to send that money.
Okay.
December was the last time that I had received anything for child.
Okay. Aside from financial, did he help you with taking care of your daughter?
No,
Did he have anything to do with your daughter?
not really.
Was that stressful on you?
Very.
Um, do you feel you're in a much different situation now?
Absolutely.
Now you understand, it's my understanding that he has voluntarily relinquished his parental rights, if I understand that correctly. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes. I haven't had any contact, but that's what I've learned.
Okay. So that isn't much different than before, is it?
No.
Okay. Do you feel something like this would ever happen again between you and either of your children?
No.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to pass the witness.
All right. Mr. Novak, any questions?
Very briefly, Judge. Miss Helms, if you were to take your daughter to a babysitter and that babysitter bit your daughter on the belly, would you ever again allow that babysitter anywhere near your child?
Depending on the reasoning, I suppose, because if like it were a situation of she was if my daughter was physically trying to injure her, if she's like as she gets older, then if in self-defense,
So
then
in your
yes.
mind, ma'am, it's okay for an adult to bite a
If
three-year.
it's
Let me finish
only
my
in
question, please.
self-defense.
In your mind, it's okay, ma'am, for an adult to bite a 3-year-old on the belly.
No, absolutely not. What I did was
If someone did
uncalled for.
that, you would never return your child to that person, correct?
No.
Pass the witness, Judge.
Mrs. Owen?
Ms. Helms, this incident took place at the very end of June last year. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Earlier in June, you were living in Vernon with Mr. Meeks.
Yes.
Okay. In that home, was there a problem with bed bugs and roaches?
Yes, unfortunately there were.
And were there 12 cats in the home?
No.
So sometime between early June and the end of June, you left Vernon and came to Amarillo.
Yes.
And so just now when you were talking about Mr. Meeks providing you child support, that was from June of 2024 to December?
While I was incarcerated, he did not send anything, but as soon as I got out, he did start again.
Okay, but Delfinia wasn't with you from June 30th all the way to now, right?
Well, prior to her removal, he had sent money.
But y'all were living together then, right?
He sent it the day I left.
Okay.
He gave it to me the day I had left.
So where were you living in Amarillo when this incident on June 30th occurred?
The Boys Ranch alumni apartment.
Are you on the lease at the house you're living now?
Yes.
There's an actual lease with your name on it?
Yes.
Have you provided that lease to Miss Elliott?
I'm not sure if I had or not.
Who else is on the lease?
Just my 2 roommates.
I thought you said you had 3.
Yes, my boyfriend did not put himself on it due to fear of his now ex-wife finding that information.
Why was he afraid of her finding that out?
They just had a very messy separation and divorce.
Has nothing to do with the fact that he's living with someone with 2 active CPS cases?
No.
The vehicles in the home, those aren't yours, correct?
I am not on any of those, no.
And whose cars are they?
The truck is my boyfriend's and the car is the roommate's.
What's your boyfriend's name?
Tyler
What's his last name?
Seal.
I'm sorry?
Seal.
Can you spell that for me? I'm having trouble hearing.
Seal.
Okay. And you are asking that the court today place Delfinia in this home with 2 roommates and your boyfriend, Tyler.
Yes.
But Tyler has refused to drug screen or do any kind of services.
Yes.
Okay. Have any of the other residents of the home agreed to drug screen?
No, they've not even been asked to do so.
Okay. You were asked what kind of visitation you're having with Delfinia. Those started virtual and then
Yes.
they went to 1 hour a week, correct?
Yes.
When did those start?
The 1 hour a week, I want to say it was February or March.
And you've been
No, it was in March.
okay.
Sorry.
You've been out of jail since November.
Yes.
Is there a reason why you didn't start your services so that you could start that visitation with your daughter?
Yes.
And what is that?
I started drug screening, and I started my search for counseling and stuff like that.
Okay. Who is your probation officer?
Right now it is Annie Brown. I think that's her name.
And is that through Potter County?
Yes.
So is Annie aware that you were discharged from TPC for missing 3 or more appointments? Not that you voluntarily left TPC.
I believe so. I did have a discussion with her on that. They were not doing my what's it called, counseling.
Okay, so you no called, no showed on April 8th, correct?
I'm not sure of exact dates. Sorry.
Okay,
I don't
and then
have
you no
it
called,
in
no
front of me.
showed on April 24th?
Again, I don't know exact dates. I just know that I haven't been to TPC in a while.
Okay, and you no called, no show on May 1st. Is that, and that's when you were discharged from TPC? Correct?
I guess that's the date.
Okay, and so that's when you decided, hey, maybe I should find somebody else to go to.
No, I had asked for different people somewhere else to go to, and I hadn't been given information from Heidi. I did reach out and was asking for different places to go to counseling.
Okay, but until you were discharged from TPC, both your family plan and your terms of probation required you to participate with TPC.
The main thing it stated was comply with TPC's treatment plan. And their treatment plan was to see a counselor. And I had not done so. So I started seeing a different counselor entirely outside of TPC.
Okay, but until you were discharged from TPC, there was no need for Miss Elliott to try to find you a separate counselor.
Well, I had informed her that I had yet to see a counselor. So if they are not going to get me a counselor, if they would refer me somewhere else, that I would start seeing an actual counselor.
So wouldn't you need to show up at your scheduled appointments to get
I was not seeing a counselor. I was only seeing a case manager for the entire time that I was in their program.
Okay, so you had mentioned that you had relearned some things that you already knew from parenting class
Prior to leaving the hospital with my daughter. She
Okay.
was actually admitted to Cook's Children's Hospital for about 3 weeks. And that is when she was diagnosed. At that point, she was diagnosed with the heart murmur and all of that.
When was this?
At birth. At her birth. She was diagnosed with a heart murmur, and she had difficulty holding down food. So she was she was sucking in too much air due to her breathing.
And that was
She had hyperpulmonary tension is what it was that she was diagnosed with at birth.
okay. So that hospitalization and evaluation took place at birth, and you
At birth.
completed some parenting classes at that point.
Yeah, it was a minor class that we just went over just a few things, and seatbelt safety or car seat safety. Sorry.
Okay. So at 3 years of age, Delphina was completely nonverbal. When did you take her to the doctor to check on that?
I came to Amarillo so that I could get services and to actually have her screened for autism because I had been trying to get her to talk, get her to be verbal. And she was just not wanting to pick it up. I looked up videos on YouTube that she could, like the learning classes that they have on YouTube for her, and I did everything I could to try to get her to be talking, and just nothing was really clicking with that. So I knew I had to come to Amarillo to try and get her those services and be able to actually transport her to those services due to the fact that they did not have those services in Vernon, and I did not have transportation to go to Wichita.
From the time that she was discharged from spending 3 weeks in the hospital until she was 3 years old, she had no medical care at all.
No, she had a checkup at, I want to say 2 weeks, and then at 2 months or something like that. And then she was checked out at the hospital because she had a high fever. And we had learned that that Keith's mother's boyfriend was sick, and neither one of them had told us about him being sick. And so she had gotten sick from that. And we didn't know until after we had gotten back the following day or the following morning is when we learned about it. They sent us home pretty much after checking her out and telling us to give her children's Tylenol or Motrin. I think that's what it was. To bring down that fever. And that's all they told us. And that was in October of 2021.
So what did the doctor say about Delphina being very behind in all her physical milestones at 3 years old?
Physical milestones, she was walking, she's fine there. She was climbing up onto the bed by herself. She learned to climb down safely by herself. And I helped her to get down the correct way for a while, but she was up and down on the couch, the bed, and everything like that. She was walking proper and everything
My
like that.
question is, what did the doctor say when you took her in to be evaluated?
Objection here.
Nothing.
Objection hearsay.
All right, I'll sustain.
So when at 3 years old, Delphina wasn't saying a single word, when did you take her to the doctor for that?
The plan was to bring her to Amarillo, get her tested, screened for autism, get her referred for to start her on speech therapy because I knew that's what she needed.
So at a year, year and a half, 2 years, when she wasn't babbling, she wasn't speaking, what did the doctor say?
I hadn't seen a doctor at those milestones.
So when you were at the park that day on the 30th, had you been drinking or doing drugs?
No.
Okay. So that's never been a problem.
No.
Okay. So all of the injuries she sustained, including bites on the arm and stomach, were at a time where you were perfectly sober.
Yes. Bites on her arm, there is no possible way for her to have bites on her arm. Stomach, I can say yes.
Okay. So you said you already had taken a parenting class and you just relearned parenting. So at the time that incident happened, you had already taken parenting classes and you were sober.
Yes.
Okay. So what is it that would need to change so that these things don't happen again? Would it be mental health?
I have had a lot of help with my mental health. My friends keep me in check according to my depression, making sure that I'm actually getting out of bed, making sure that I'm out doing stuff, making sure that I'm okay mentally, as well as going to the counseling.
So you started these services in, I guess things were scheduled in April, but it sounds like things started happening in May.
Possibly. I'm not on the dates. I'm not 100% sure.
Why should Delphinia have to wait so long?
She shouldn't.
You had mentioned that you're really unsure of the details of the roommate's CPS involvement, but you're planning to bring a nonverbal 4-year-old into the home with them without knowing what went on with their own children?
Yes. I see how they are with their children, and so I don't see any problem with it. That from what I have seen personally with the way they interact with their children, I don't see a problem.
And you said Tyler is not going to drug screen.
He did not want to do anything that could potentially extend the length of my case.
Why would he think going to drug screen would extend the length of your case?
That's not the only thing that he was being asked to do.
And you've known Tyler for 4 months?
No, I have known him since I was brought over to his sister's place because because it was just me and my 2 roommates for a while, and she shares custody, or not shares really. She is the mother of the 2 children between her and Tyler. She is the children's mother.
So how long you've been dating Tyler for 4 months?
I have been dating him for 4 months, but I have known him longer than that.
And how has he ever met Delphinia?
No, he is not. We did not want to overwhelm her during visitations with more people. I have had discussions about him and the children meeting her at some point. We have not come to a conclusion on when that would be.
But right now you think it's in her best interest to just simply move into the home with all those people?
I was hoping that we would have more time for her to get to know her brother as well, because he would be placed as well back into the home.
The brother that's the subject of a different case?
Yes, they're siblings, so she would have 2 older children and 1 younger than herself that she would get to know. And I was hoping that she would know the brother prior to meeting the rest of everybody.
But the brother's not living in your home, right?
No, at the moment.
So this is the final hearing where we're trying to determine where Delphinia is going to live, and you're asking that she be moved into this home with all of these people.
Yes.
Okay. I pass witness.
Okay. I've got another matter that is already scheduled for 1:30. I'm gonna check in with all of them. I'm hopeful that we won't be very long, but I'm gonna have all of you return at, let's say, 2:45. Just about an hour from now. Ms. Zavala is obviously still involved with this next hearing, and so is, of course, Ms. Taylor. So I need to give them a break. Why don't you, the two of you, go ahead and start taking a break. Let me get everybody in for the 1:30, and they may need to talk, or I may need to. I just need to check in and see what's going on. I had an update on it, but I don't know kind of where we stand. So everybody on the Meeks case, I'll see you back at 2:45.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Judge.
Ms. Helms, earlier when I was asking you questions, we were discussing your probation. And to my question, you had stated that you were not in compliance to a probation based upon the TPC requirement. And also that you would not finish your services with your family plan service, mainly due to TPC. But then when Mr. Barfield asked you a question, you stated you were in compliance with your probation.
With the TPC plan.
Okay. So are you in compliance with probation or not?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say yes, because TPC stated that they wanted me to do counseling, and I had not seen a counselor with their program.
Okay. Is the requirement under TPC, under your probation, to follow TPC treatment plan?
Treatment plan. It's all that stated.
Okay. And under TPC?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
And
not directly under TPC, but their treatment plan.
And under your probation order, comply with TPC treatment plan?
Yes.
Okay. And under your family plan of service, you are required to individual counseling and Texas Panhandle Centers, correct?
That's what the Panhandle Centers was for the individual counseling.
No, ma'am. You have a requirement for individual counseling. And
Yes.
you have a requirement for Texas Panhandle Centers. They are not interchangeable.
No, from my understanding, it was their treatment plan as well.
You seen your family plan of service? You got a copy of it?
I do not at
Okay.
the moment, no.
Do you own a copy of the family plan of service?
It may be around in my thing of papers with everything in it. I'm not sure exactly where it is in there.
Okay. Your Honor, may I screen share real quick?
Yeah, let me enable it real quickly. All right.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Can you see that, Ms. Helms?
Yes.
Okay. Is oh, sorry. Okay. Is this your signature?
Yes.
Okay. And this states the date of copy given was 11/21 of 24?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 12. It's a file marked copy of the family plan service evaluation, and the signature that Ms. Helms testified was hers.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
All right, and this was 12.
Yes, ma'am, exhibit 12.
Was it under a different email?
Yes, ma'am, I sent it during the break. I just sent it a while ago.
Okay, hang on, give me a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
You had a break, but
Yes,
Simmons didn't have a break, so just a minute. I gotta find it. All right, Petitioner's Exhibit 12 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me find what I'm looking for here. So, Ms. Helms, do you see where my mouse is?
Yes.
And that states will attend individual counseling, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then right here, will participate and complete an assessment with Texas Panhandle Centers, correct?
That was my that was my plan to go to them for the counseling.
It's not my question, Ms. Helms. The question is, they're two individual services, correct?
Yes, that's what it states, but that's not what it was. It was because I was wanting to try to go through them for the counseling.
Ms. Helms, you didn't make this family plan of service, did you?
No.
Okay. You don't get to decide which services you want to work
Your
in.
Honor, I'm gonna object,
Okay.
argumentative.
Overruled. She's just not answering the question. If she needs to listen to his question and just answer the question.
Ms. Helms, you have a requirement under your family plan of service that is court ordered to do an individual counseling, correct?
Yes.
And to do a assessment and a service plan with Texas Panhandle Centers, correct?
Yes.
Okay, those are two different services. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you understand you don't get to decide which ones you do and if they interchange?
Yes.
Okay. Have you completed those services?
I didn't continue with TPC due to not receiving starting my treatment with them as they stated that they wanted me to do.
Okay. You quit going to your Texas Panhandle Center services.
I was not seeing a counselor as per their treatment plan.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive. And Judge, you're muted.
I'll sustain the objection. Listen to his question and answer what he's asking you.
You stopped going to Texas Panhandle
Yes.
Centers. And you got discharged from Texas Panhandle Centers.
Yes.
Okay. So you have not completed the service or complied with your family plan of service in respect to Texas Panhandle Centers.
Yes.
Thank you. Earlier, well, back up just a second. How many counseling sessions did you say you have done?
3.
Okay, and you have 3 left.
Yes.
So at this point, you have not completed that service either.
Not at the moment.
Okay. Earlier, when I was asking you questions, you stated when you got out of jail, you didn't start your services till later because you were trying to figure out who to get in touch
I
with.
did not know where they wanted me to go, what services they like to the fullest, because they didn't know if they wanted me to do more parenting classes as well. That was one of the things that I had started later due to that fact.
Okay. But that's what you stated. You didn't know where to go.
Yes.
Okay. Does that copy of your family plan of service tell you where to go and the phone numbers and the contacts?
Yes, and I reached
Okay.
out several times to one of them and I got
Objection,
nothing.
Your Honor, non-responsive. She answered the question with the first statement.
Sustained.
So according to exhibit number 12 and exhibit number, I believe it was 4, I believe. Sorry. Yeah, exhibit number 4. You signed the family plan of service in July of last year, and you signed another copy and received the copy in November of 2024, correct? Okay. So you
Probably
knew,
about that
so
time.
you knew where to go and you knew what services you had to do, correct?
The counseling, no, I did not.
Okay. Did you know how to get in touch with Miss Elliott?
Yes,
Okay. So you knew what services you were required of you for this case.
yes,
You got out in November.
yes,
You did not start your services except for the parenting classes you did in jail. You did not start your services till March. Correct?
no.
Okay. What'd you do in
I
December,
tried to
January?
do the counts.
Okay, hang
Yes,
on,
ma'am.
Ms. Helms, you answered no, that was the answer. He's asking another question.
Then what did you do in December, January, and February for your services?
I had started trying to go to Jennings counseling, but it was too much on gas. And I got the last time I had gone to to them, I had ended up stranded because the services that I was using for some reason was not there. They weren't open, even though I had been picked up by their services. So I was not going to risk being stranded there again. And I was still uh pregnant at the time whenever that had happened.
And when you say their services, who are you talking about?
I used Medicaid free rides, and they only do medical transportation
Okay.
and medical only.
Did you ask St. Francis for transport to these services?
No,
Okay.
I did not want it. I did not want to rely on them too much for those. I only needed them to get to my visitations with my son after those unfortunately had to start.
So you're aware that St. Francis also had transportation that you could utilize? Okay.
I did
And you-
not realize that they were meant, I could use them for those things though. I was under the impression that they were meant for visitations with my children.
Did you ask?
No, but that was my impression
Okay.
from the start.
Now, Ms. Zavala spoke to you earlier about medical appointments with Delfina prior to this case being correct?
Yes,
Okay. And at one point you stated you took Delfina to a 2-week visit?
a 2-week visit after
And-
she'd been, or 2 weeks after being released.
Ms. Helms, let me finish asking the question. The 2-week and the 2-month, and then you stated you took her to the doctor when she ran a fever, correct?
Yes.
What about all the other wellness visits and checks for newborn babies? Did you do any of those within the first 2 years?
No, I did not.
Okay. Why not?
I had no form of transportation at all.
Okay. And you stated earlier that you came to Amarillo to bring Delphina for services. to get
Yes, for services and better, reliable transportation.
Okay. You also stated you didn't have transportation to, I believe it was Wichita Falls, is what you said. Is that correct?
To get to Wichita Falls, because that was the only, we didn't have anything in Vernon. It's
Okay.
that small of a town that there's no services there for her.
Yes. So if you didn't have transportation to Wichita Falls, how'd you get transportation to Amarillo?
My aunt and uncle traveled from Dalhart all the way there, picked us up, and then dropped us off in Amarillo.
Okay. And you didn't have any friends or family that could take you to Wichita Falls?
No, not in that area, no.
Where was Delphinia's pediatrician?
So I was under the impression that there was no pediatrics in Vernon due to the fact that because we were new to the area, and every time I looked it up, they were all in Wichita Falls, as well as the fact that his sister and him had gotten reconnected, and she stated that there was none in Vernon
Okay.
as well.
Where was the 2-week and the 2-month visit?
Oh, that would have been in Abilene, I believe.
Okay. So y'all moved around some and you didn't establish a doctor for a newborn?
No.
At the time, did Mr. Meeks have transportation? Does he have transportation?
He only had rides to and from work because he worked the same schedule as whoever was taking him to work.
Okay. Okay. Did you do a psychological with Stonebridge?
Yes, that was completed yesterday.
Okay.
100% completed.
Okay. So in 12 months, you got it completed on the last day?
I had a assessment to complete with them, and then they had the appointment, and then to yesterday they sent me a couple more assessments that they wanted me to complete.
Okay.
And that was the final thing that they wanted me to do.
Okay. But that didn't answer my question. You had 12 months to do this and you got it done on the last day, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Barfield?
Thank you, Judge. Okay, so Stonebridge is complete, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What did that entail?
They had me do 2 assessments, both of which were pretty extensive. Then they had the appointment, and that was an hour and a half appointment, just about. And then yesterday they sent me 2 more small little assessments to complete.
Okay. Did you get any benefit from Stonebridge, do you believe?
I believe so.
In what manner?
Some of the questions kind of helped me a little understand how, like, where I am mentally, because a lot of the questions, had I answered them prior to a lot of my counseling, especially, I would have answered a lot differently, I feel like,
Okay.
in the assessments.
Are you aware of anything in your service plan that said you couldn't finish the service the day before the final hearing?
No.
In regards to your situation regarding medical care for your child prior to moving to Amarillo, you've been questioned about that a lot. Did you have any money?
No.
Who were you living with?
Keith.
Okay. Did you say you had no transportation?
That is correct.
Did you own a vehicle?
No.
Okay. Did they have public transportation that you're aware of in Vernon?
I have no idea. It's such a small town. I personally didn't even know anybody in town.
Okay. So did you move to Amarillo to try to move to a bigger city to better your situation?
Yes.
Okay. And your child's situation.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in regards to when this occurred, that was a year ago, was it not?
Yes.
Do you believe you've made progress in regards to your thinking process on how to properly care for a child?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the point of the services?
Yes.
Okay. Now, currently, let's talk about the TPC thing again. In reading your service plan, okay,
Mhm.
it appears that there are two separate services in that document. Did you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Did you understand that prior to us just going through this in this hearing?
I was under the impression that TPC was part of the individual counseling of my choice. And due to the fact that I was not seeing anybody in TPC, I decided that I would need to get somewhere else to get what their treatment plan was for me to start seeing a counselor. And I had not seen one, so I found a new one.
Okay. Now, so technically, you did not comply with the TPC service plan, correct?
Technically, yes.
Practically, did you seek out counseling?
Yes.
And you're still seeing counseling?
Yes.
When you went to TPC, let me ask it. Did you go to TPC initially?
Yes. I was
Pursu-
seeing them, and I was told that that's what they wanted me to do, was see a counselor.
Okay. When you went, now, did you miss some appointments at TPC?
Yes, they were with a case manager, not a counselor.
Okay. Why did you miss those appointments?
The first time it was due to the fact that I think I was at work whenever I was supposed to have that appointment, and I just completely spaced on it. Because it was during my work hours, and I completely spaced on it because it was only going to take about 15 minutes
Okay.
to have that. So I could have done it easily at work, but I completely spaced on it.
Now, are you paid hourly or by salary?
Hourly.
Okay. And did you think to ask off that day?
No, I figured that I would be able to step away for 15 minutes to make that phone call and everything, because that's what she had discussed with me, was that if need be, that I could do my appointment over the phone.
Okay. But in all candor, you just got working and forgot all
Yeah.
about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the second time you missed. What happened then?
I just started realizing that no matter how long I'm going to be in, I've already been in this program for a pretty good amount of time to have started seeing a counselor or been assigned one at the very least, and I hadn't been. And the only thing that only person I was seeing was the case manager that was supposed to discuss with said counselor on what was going, how my plan was going, how my counseling sessions were, and everything like that, and also discuss with me how I felt those were going as well.
Okay.
And so since I wasn't seeing a counselor, I saw no point in having that conversation with her because nothing had changed.
Okay. And so by the third time, did you just not show up, or what happened there?
Basically, yes.
Okay. Did you feel that TPC was doing anything to assist you whatsoever with complying with the service plan?
No, because the service plan was to see a counselor and to comply with their plan, which was not being completed. They were not complying with their own plan.
Okay.
So
Now,
I decided to get out of it.
Now, at any time when you met, when you did meet, how many times did you meet with a caseworker?
I want to say 2 or 3 times. But after the first one, that first session, she understood that I didn't have a counselor yet. But after that point, and making the statement of,
I don't want you telling me what anybody said.
she was
Hey,
surprised
listen
that,
to me. Don't interrupt me, please. The court reporter can't take that down, okay? Listen to my question, please. Okay? Okay. Now, after you met with the caseworkers,
Yes.
did they ever assign you a counselor?
No.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not griping at you. There's a way we have to do this. Okay. Now, currently, with your current counselor, you've been able to see her.
Yes.
Okay. Did you run into the same problems with this counselor that you ran into at TPC?
No.
Thank you. So, to your knowledge, you have 3 counseling sessions you have to complete.
Yes.
Other than that, to your belief or impression is a phrase you like to use, is there anything else you have not done to comply with your service plan?
Not that I can think of.
Okay. Have you tried to comply with your service plan?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in your home, where you currently live, have you observed any behaviors that by any of the people you live with, that you would perceive as a danger to children?
No.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this question. Different people have different perceptions of things based upon the fact that you've pled guilty to injury of a child. Okay. You understand you've done that.
Mhm.
Okay. Based on an objective standard, do you understand what I'm talking about when I say behaviors that would be dangerous to a child?
Yes.
What are some of those behaviors that you've discovered are dangerous to a child?
Physical harm to a child, mental or emotional abuse to a child, medical abuse to a child. And I have not observed any of those from any of the people living here.
Now, a year or so ago, when all this started, and even before that, did you have that bank of knowledge naturally, or were you lacking in that ability to recognize?
I feel like I was lacking a bit in that myself.
Do you understand why it would be concerning to the people involved in this case, why a child did not have their wellness appointments or see a doctor on a regular basis, a pediatrician? Do you understand why that would be a concerning red flag to people who are involved in cases involving children?
Yes.
Why do you believe that would be concerning to the people involved in this case?
Some people that do so, that refuse to take their child to receive medical care, have a tendency to be hiding any type of abuse that they are inflicting on their child.
Was that the case in your situation?
No.
During this period of time, were you intentionally abusing and inflicting abuse on your child?
No.
That was not your intent?
No.
Okay. So in the future, one, you're living in Amarillo here, right?
Yes.
Do you have access to health care for your child here in Amarillo?
Yes.
If your child got sick and you had to take the child to the doctor, what would you do?
Contact the pediatrician and ask what they would want me to do. first. That's what I've always been told to do. Contact pediatrician and then go from what they say to do.
Okay. 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 Now, do you believe that you can keep your child safe?
Yes,
Why do you believe that?
because I understand what I did wrong that day, and I'm going to do everything I can to try and avoid that and avoid letting anybody else do the same.
Okay. Because you were asked earlier that, hey, if somebody bit your child,
Yeah,
you let them around your child.
no.
Okay. And that was kind of a, do you still beat your wife question? Kudos. But do you understand that it's your job to protect your child?
Yes,
Okay. Is that your intent to do so?
to protect her, yes.
Okay. I'll pass the witness.
Ms. Helms, I guess I want to know, how is it that you are going to do that when you can't even be unsupervised with the child for the next 4 years?
That is up to CPS. If they relinquish her back to my custody, then it states that I can be alone with her after that point. As long as CPS states until CPS states otherwise, I have supervised visitations.
And Judge, I
That was
think
exhibit 2, is that correct?
23B, Judge, is the probation order. The way it reads, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to break protocol. The way that but I know a little bit about the criminal stuff. The probation order, the way it's written, that is the fact she has to be supervised with the kids is determinant on this case. If the court rules that she can be around her child unsupervised, that is not a term of her probation. The probation order is dependent on this case in regards to her being around the child. So I think it was stated in a permanency report that she couldn't be around the child for 4 years. That's absolutely wrong. So
Well,
that's the
I don't
probation
think that's in
provision. She has to comply with CPS restrictions. So really it's the court's determination as to whether, if the court deemed that she could be around the child unsupervised, that goes away.
Okay. So I'm looking at exhibit 12, which has been admitted into evidence.
Mhm.
Paragraph 23B. Granted, it's handwritten in there. It says client is only allowed supervised contact with victim as allowed by CPS.
Mhm.
What that says to me is she's only allowed supervised contact, that we can say, okay, that's going to be 1 hour a week or 2, or who's going to supervise or whatever, but that I mean, that's just the as allowed by CPS seems to me to be just a little bit of a modifier to the requirement that it be supervised.
It's poorly worded, but if she would get custody back of the child, it's CPS dependent. They're just saying, hey, you got to comply with CPS requirements. And so, I mean, obviously I'm not the criminal defense lawyer in that case. But it's kind of like a bond restriction, the way I look at it and the way I read it. And that's just the way I read that. And I understand if this court ruled that she could have conservatorship or non-visit, the way that's worded, I could bet you could go in front of a judge and the judge say, okay, that's fine. Because I think the criminal court is deferring to the CPS court to make that determination.
I understand that's how you and your client want to interpret that, but under sentence construction, and you read it, and it says client is only allowed supervised contact with victim. And then, then it comes at the end of that, as allowed by CPS. I think the supervised contact is what we have the ability to dictate. What is that supervised contact going to be? I mean, I think the modifying clause of that sentence is only saying as to the supervised contact. So that's where my question comes from, and I'm not sure anybody can really answer that. So
And
I
Judge,
think
I'd
it's a
say,
sentence construction situation, and the way I read it is that the only thing that we can do is dictate what supervised contact she will have. None, 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, maybe who's going to supervise, maybe where those visits are going to take place. But it seems to me that it's a requirement of her deferred adjudication that she is only allowed supervised contact with the victim.
And Judge, I've had that same question. Of course, I don't know how to interpret what the district court did, and what that judge was meaning in that. But I have no idea. I don't know which way that breaks up and how that works. I just know what it says in the order.
And again, look, outside, I'm just saying,
I
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, Judge. I get what Daniel's saying. I think we're all in the same boat there.
Yeah.
I do, but it is a pivotal question as to what did Judge Estevez order.
And I think the only person that can answer that's Judge Estevez, quite frankly, because it's her order.
Exactly. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of normal sentence construction. And to me, it's very clear that it's saying she's only allowed supervised contact. We dictate maybe the details of that. But, and if she had something else in mind, then I mean, I guess that's one thing, but okay. Well, I'm going to withdraw my own question from Ms. Helms. So, all right then. Mr. Nowak, do you have any questions for her?
No additional questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right, and Ms. Zavala?
Hopefully just a few. Ms. Helms, can you tell me what services Delfina is currently getting?
They're working to get her into speech therapy, and occupational therapy to get her referred for those, according to her autism.
Okay, and also physical therapy? Right?
I suppose that would be fall under occupational. I think.
Is that because she was significantly behind?
Not significantly. Because she was walking and everything else, sitting on her own, walking on her own, just fine.
So if the doctor at the hospital said she is significantly behind and needs to be referred for services, you disagree with that?
For physical therapy on being developmentally delayed physically, I don't know, because I've seen children get put into ankle braces, and that was part of the physical therapy, if that makes any sense. For stabilization whenever walking.
Okay. Okay. How much does Delphinia talk?
She's starting to get some words out. I mean, the first or second time that I had seen her, I had brought her a juice, and she actually was talking, like she actually said one of the names of the fruit that was in the bottle. So I was very proud of her whenever she was able to do that. So she's not talking much, but she is getting a lot more out for sure.
Delphinia can't even tell somebody when she's hungry and wants a meal, can she?
She not verbally, no.
Would you be surprised to know that just a quick Google search shows a whole bunch of doctors in Vernon?
No, I didn't see anything for services for her specifically for the autism and stuff like that. Because of the fact that I was trusting like his family on those things, that is where I got my information from.
Do you believe if you had taken her in for her regular appointments, those delays would have been identified sooner?
The speech, yes. The physical delays, not real. She didn't have physical delays.
I pass witness.
All right, Mr. Trout?
Ms. Helms, was Delphinia on Medicaid when y'all were in Vernon?
I believe so, yes.
Can Medicaid help you identify doctors?
Yes, and I wasn't being referred to anybody in Vernon.
Okay.
Every place that had took her Medicaid was outside of Vernon. From my understanding.
Okay. Is that because you're taking other people's word?
No, I actually had reached out and they were not taking her Medicaid.
Okay.
For
Who
them,
was not?
whenever I went in for her shots at the what's it called? They did not do shots.
I'm sorry, I don't
So
know who what's it called is.
Whenever I had taken her for shot, the first time I had taken her to get shots done at a clinic that was there, they didn't do shots at all, and they didn't do any services for her unless that took her Medicaid.
Okay.
On that stuff. So I had to go somewhere else to get those shots for her
Where'd
to
you
be
go?
updated. It was I don't know if it's like a clinic or whatever, but we went there and it's actually attached to the CPS office that's there in Vernon.
Okay.
It's the same building, but it's on the other side of it.
Did you ask any of those people, CPS or the clinic or anybody right there, if there was a pediatrician in Vernon?
They did tell me that there were some, but they did.
Objection, non-responsive, Judge. She answered the question.
Sustained.
And I asked that question, Ms. Helms, because earlier you stated, I believe you had done a Google search and there weren't any pediatricians in Vernon.
Yes, that.
Okay. That was not a correct statement, correct?
So I did do a Google search, and all of them were coming every time I scrolled. The first few that popped up were in Wichita, not in Vernon.
Okay. How'd you get transportation to and from the clinic?
Actually, CPS had sent one of their workers to take us there.
Okay. So when you state you don't have transportation to doctor's visits or to wellness checks for the newborn, you had options, correct? You used them, you utilized them already.
Yes, late
Okay.
after the fact, right before we left Vernon.
Now real quick, just a couple of questions on the TPC. You did a evaluation at TPC on February 5th. Does that sound right?
probably about right, yes.
Okay. And then after the evaluation, you had an initial visit on March 4th. Does that sound right? With your case
I would
manager?
have to go back into my messages to see that, but probably about that time.
Okay. And then your next scheduled appointment was April 8th. Does that sound correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you missed that appointment.
I think so.
Okay.
And
And-
I know that I saw her one more time after that.
And then
After that appointment.
your next appointment was April 24th. And you missed that appointment.
No, I went there twice to meet with her in person.
Okay. And then your next appointment was May 1st, and you called, no showed that appointment.
Yes.
Okay. So you did an evaluation and a visit with Christian, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then you didn't go to any more of your appointments.
I had 2 appointments with her.
Okay.
So that I had gone to.
How would you get through your casework and get a counselor appointed if you don't go to your visits after the second one?
Because I was supposed to have a counselor appointed to me prior to seeing her in the first place. But she wasn't too surprised that it hadn't happened because they were still working on employing more counselors at that time.
So you knew that they were having issues with that and you just quit going?
No. I did not stop going after that one. After the second time of visiting with her and her having said or been surprised at the very least that I hadn't started seeing a counselor, that is where I started getting confused as to why I hadn't seen one in the first place.
Okay. Do you think it's a good idea to just quit going then?
If you're not receiving the services that you're intended to be getting at any place, why go there?
Because you're court ordered to do it.
I wasn't receiving the services that I was court ordered to receive.
Well,
So I went somewhere else to get court ordered
I'll pass
services.
witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Barfield.
Your Honor, I don't believe I have any further questions, Judge.
All right, Mr. Novak.
Nothing additional, Judge. Thank you.
Ms. Zavala.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. Okay, Mr. Trout. Any additional witnesses?
Yes, ma'am. Call Heidi Elliott.
All right. Ms. Elliott, you raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ms. Taylor, are you okay? Or you need a short break? Okay, all right. Okay, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Elliott, would you state your name for the record, please?
Heidi Elliott,
And Ms. Elliott, how are you employed?
Permanency Specialist of St. Francis Ministries.
And are you familiar with the case involving the child Delfina Meeks?
Yes,
And how are you familiar with that case?
I'm the Permanency Specialist assigned to this case.
Okay. You've been here for the testimony, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm gonna I'll go ahead and start with Dad right now, and then we'll
Okay.
talk about Mom. Did you receive what I sent out, exhibit number 6?
Okay.
Okay. Can you tell me what that is?
Affidavit of voluntary relinquishment of parental rights.
Have you ever seen this before?
No, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is this an affidavit of voluntary relinquishment as to the father, Keith Meeks, to the child, Delfina Meeks?
Yes.
Did the father sign the affidavit?
Yes.
Were there 2 witnesses?
Yes.
Was it notarized?
Yes.
Has the department consented to being the designated managing conservator of the child?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number, or excuse me real quick. Ms. Elliott, was it filed with the court on June 13th of 2025.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibit number 6 as the file marked copy of the affidavit of voluntary relinquishment as to the father.
Objection.
No objection.
No objection. I had written down exhibit 2 for some reason, Daniel. You just said exhibit 6.
Yes.
Not 2, we've admitted 2 already.
Yeah, 2's already admitted. This is
All right,
6.
my bad. I misheard something. No objection, Judge.
All right, petitioner's exhibit 6 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Elliott, as to Dad, are you asking the court to terminate his parental rights of Keith Meeks as to the child Delfina Meeks based solely upon his affidavit of voluntary relinquishment?
Yes, sir.
And do you believe that's in the best interest of the child?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, you've heard the testimony as to mom and what we have gone through today, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you had meetings with mom as to her services?
Yes.
Okay. Have y'all discussed what services she needs to do?
Yes.
And you heard earlier, she does have a copy of her service plan.
Yes.
Okay. Have y'all been through that service plan?
Yes.
Did you explain to mom that there's counseling and there's TPC
Yes.
and that those are separate services?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have y'all had discussions about her finishing these services?
Yes.
Has mom finished her services at this time?
No.
Is mom court ordered to finish these services?
Yes.
And we are at the 1-year mark in this case.
Yes.
Were there struggles during parts of this of getting counselors set up and getting some services set up?
Yes.
Okay. What was done to rectify those? What services were they and what was done to rectify that?
She was going to go through counseling through Jennings, and it was too far of a drive, so we referred her to Lawson at Recovery Tree, and that's where she's doing her therapy there.
Okay.
Parenting, she's doing that online.
Okay. As to she completed irrational behavior, is that correct?
Yes.
She has stable housing at the moment. However, under CPS is not an appropriate house for the child. Is that correct?
Correct.
Transportation, she has not her own, but she does have access to transportation.
Yes.
Okay. Have you received the pay stubs for employment or verified her employment?
The first month of employment I have, but since then I have not.
Okay. When was that first month of employment that you had?
In March.
Okay. Have you been able to verify with an employer?
No, sir.
Okay. Has she maintained contact with you?
Yes.
Okay. She has been testing and testing negative. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
You stated her individual counseling sessions are moved from Jennings to Lawson, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. She started them, but has not completed those.
Correct.
Okay. Now you heard testimony earlier as to her evaluations with the psychological with Stonebridge, correct?
Yes.
Has that been completed to your knowledge? Have you gotten any certificate or any recommendations from Stonebridge at this point?
No, sir. It takes a little while to get that report to me, but she did complete that one.
Okay. She completed the assessment.
Yes, the psychological. Yes, sir.
But we have no idea if the service is completed because we don't know if any recommendations are.
Correct. Correct.
You stated that she had completed rational behavior, but she has not completed the service of Texas Panhandle Centers, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And she did some parenting while incarcerated and is currently still working on that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And just for clarity, she did parenting while incarcerated, and now she's doing some outside parenting. What is the difference? Why is she doing extra parenting when she completed some while in jail?
We offered some extra parenting so she can get more tips on how to raise her children correctly and provide for them.
Okay. So the parenting that she's working on right now is not that she hasn't completed parenting, she's in addition to her original
Yes,
parenting.
sir.
Okay. All right. Are there still concerns? Does the department still have concerns due to the living situation and the probation situation with mom as to her being able to efficiently parent the child?
Yes, sir.
Is it concerning as to, of course, the reasons why this removal happened and why mom is on probation?
Yes, sir.
Are you asking the court today to terminate the parental rights of Tessa Helms as to Delfina Meeks based upon Section L, the conviction or deferred adjudication for the injury to the child,
Yes, sir.
and the D&E grounds, and the
Yes, sir.
child work services?
Yes, sir.
And do you believe that that is in the best interest of the child?
Yes, sir.
How is Delphina doing today?
She's doing amazing. She's bonded with her foster family. He's had her evaluated for speech therapy, occupational and physical therapy, and he's waiting for approval to get her started on services for those. He's got her in a daycare, and she's doing amazing.
She's been diagnosed with autism, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Does she interact with adults and children appropriately, or does she still having issues there?
The home she's in, the foster dad has adopted sibling set, and 2 of those are autistic also.
Okay.
So they play really well together, and there's no issues at all in the home.
Okay. So the foster parent now is licensed to adopt, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If Delphina was to become available, is that the goal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the year that she has been in care, has Delphinia's motor skills, speech, everything developed appropriately?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But she does need some services based upon her diagnosis.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And those are all in the works to get done.
Yes, sir.
So based upon your work on the case, which you have seen and what we have testimony we've heard and what we're talking about today, you do believe it's in the best interest of Delphina to stay where she is and for parents' rights to be terminated and to possibly allow her to be adopted?
Yes, sir.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Barfield.
Let's just start back with, since we're talking about Delphina, we'll just start there. So you said she's doing amazing in care.
Yes, yes.
Is she verbal?
She can count to 10 now, and she can say mom, dad, and she's progressing as quick as she could.
Okay. And the diagnosis of autism, when was that made approximately? I'm not asking for a specific date.
It was possibly before she got moved here in town, here to Amarillo. It's right before she got moved here.
Who made
I don't know the approximate date.
Who made that diagnosis?
The foster mom had taken her to the pediatrician, and they observed her there.
Okay. And before this case was even begun?
No, sir.
Okay. Because I think let me re-ask it to clear.
Okay.
All right. After the case was begun, at some point, this child was put in placement.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when was that? Approximately. I'm not asking you for specific dates. I don't expect it.
When she was diagnosed with autism, or when she was
Correct.
in,
Yes.
I would say July of last year, June, or no, between July and August, I believe. I don't have the notes in front of me.
Okay. When did this case start?
June of last year.
Okay. And sometime after that, Delfina was diagnosed with autism.
Okay. Yes.
I'm not telling you, I'm asking you.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out when she was diagnosed with autism, before or after the case.
It was after the case started.
Okay. All right. And okay. Now, have you since learned that one of the reasons she has speech problems is she's autistic?
Yes, sir.
And that is, to your knowledge, is that any fault of Tessa Helms that this child is autistic?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, in regards to does the autism, to your knowledge, does the autism contribute to any physical delays?
As to my knowledge, it could. Yes.
Okay. That also would be no fault of Tessa Helms, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, in regards to, let's talk about the counseling at TPC and the TPC requirement, okay? Were you made aware that Tessa had gone to TPC several times and was not assigned a counselor so she could comply with the service plan?
Well, when I talked to TPC, she was only there for her first visit and the following, and then she missed 3 following appointments.
Okay. Now, since then, she has been going to counseling.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's with Melissa, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, how is that counseling going?
From what the email said, it looks like it's going well.
Okay. It's actually going extremely well, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it appears that Tessa is made really good progress with this particular counselor. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in regards to what other services with TPC other than the counselor did Tessa need?
What other services does she need?
Yeah. What else was she supposed to do? I mean, are you aware if she's been diagnosed as being schizophrenic or bipolar or have any major psychological disease where she'd need TPC treatment?
It was not reported, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now in regards to her compliant with maintaining employment, has she maintained employment for the past several months?
Yes, sir, but I've not received any check stubs until the first month that she was there.
Okay. But do you have any reason to doubt she's still employed by Sonic?
No, sir.
Okay. Where has she maintained the same residence for several months?
Yes.
Okay. And have she maintained contact with you during this case?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has she substantially completed all of her services?
Not all of them, sir.
Okay. Has she substantially completed the vast majority of her services?
Some of them she has.
Okay. Well, let's just do this. What services has she completed then? If you don't mind just going down the list and
Okay.
advising the court what she's completed, maybe that's an easier way to do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
She's maintained contact,
Okay.
provided information, stable and appropriate employments, drug-free lifestyle, psychosocial evaluation, rational behavior therapy.
Okay. And part of the psychosocial did recommend some counseling. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We've already heard that ad nauseum. Okay. So she's doing that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is your recommendation for termination based on the flat fact she didn't technically adhere to the TPC program?
And also her,
Please go ahead,
her,
speak freely. That's fine.
her living conditions also, sir.
Okay. What about the living conditions?
Her roommates have significant CPS history.
Okay. Do any of the children, any of the roommates currently have an open CPS case?
No, but they do have RTBs. And Tessa has not showed behavior change as of yet.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. Have you been in the home?
Not for July yet.
Okay. When was the last time you were in the home?
It was in May because I've seen her in the office in June.
Okay. Was the home an appropriate place to live?
Yes, sir.
Did you see any obvious dangers that caused you to call an investigator in because there's other children living there?
No, sir.
Yeah. And so you went into the home and you've looked in the home, and you as a CPS worker, you're under an obligation to report if you see a danger, are you not?
Yes.
And you didn't do that, did you?
No.
Because there's not a danger there. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
You know what?
Just briefly, Heidi, I first want to thank you for always taking my phone calls and being available. I think Daniel stole my thunder, but I just want to make sure I heard it correctly. You're asking that Mr. Meeks, Keith Meeks, rights be terminated based solely upon his affidavit of relinquishment, correct?
Yes, sir.
Heidi, thank you so much. Judge, I'll pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Vogt.
Miss Elliott, as far as we know, drugs and alcohol didn't play a part in the events that happened at the park.
No, ma'am.
So the child was brought to the hospital covered from head to toe with marks and bruises, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Including bite marks that were inflicted by her mother.
Yes, ma'am.
Mom wasn't drunk or high when that happened. It was just a normal day.
Yes.
So what she needs in this case is mental health, correct?
I agree.
So the parts of the service plan that were to address mental health were the psychological evaluation, which just took place yesterday, a year after this case has been going on. And that's where we determine what else she might need for that, correct?
Yes.
And she started counseling in June and has had 3 sessions.
Yes.
She didn't go to TPC to determine if they could get her in to be evaluated for any kind of medication or anything like that, right?
Right.
And TPC is the local mental health authority.
Yes.
Okay. And it was so important both for our case and for the criminal case that she get that mental health assistance, that it was specifically written in both orders.
Yes, ma'am.
And we sit here a year in and we haven't even been able to see what the psychological says. She hasn't been to TPC and she's had 3 counseling visits.
Yes, ma'am.
She is asking for her nonverbal 4-year-old to be placed in a home where every adult has CPS and criminal history,
Yes.
and where every adult in that home has said, we are not going to cooperate with CPS.
Yes.
You've actually talked to the people in the home and they've said no.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You specifically asked for drugs testing and you were told no.
Yes, ma'am.
Because she waited so long to do her services after she got out, she's had 2 months worth of 1-hour visits with her daughter.
Yes.
Could all of that have been started much, much earlier?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it correct that mom didn't even start working any services until her baby was removed after birth?
Yes, ma'am.
And she's mentioned her son several times and she wanted to see her son and visitations with her son. Does it feel like Delfina is kind of an afterthought?
Yes.
You mentioned that Delfina says 1 through 10 and mom and dad, but she doesn't say anything else, does she?
No, ma'am.
And these are new events that she's even been able to say those things.
Yes, ma'am.
Is Delfina still getting upset when she goes to a park?
That one time he took her to the park, he took her for some one-on-one time, and excuse me, and she screamed and she was throwing a fit, and he took
Your
her
Honor,
back.
Your Honor, I'm going to object unless she witnessed this event. I'm going to object to speculation unless this particular witness personally witnessed this event. I'm going to object her testifying to that.
Ms. Elliott, were you present?
No, ma'am.
Is that information based on something someone else told you?
The foster dad.
Okay,
I'll withdraw the question.
All right. She's withdrawing the question then. All right.
Okay.
I'll pass witness.
Okay. Mr. Trout, back to you.
Just a couple of questions. Ms. Elliott, Mr. Barfield asked you earlier if your request for termination was based mainly on the failure to work the couple of services, correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's not based only on that, is it?
No, sir.
Is it also based on the condition in which Delfina came into care
Yes.
and the mother's pleading to the criminal charge
Yes, sir.
that led to this case?
Yes, sir.
And to a point, mother's defiance as far as cooperating with the living situation and the people that she is involved with.
Yes.
And do those all combined bring you to this decision
Yes, sir.
and recommendation?
Yes, sir.
And you believe that from what you have been working on for this year with mom, this is the correct decision and recommendation to the court is to terminate her rights?
Yes, sir.
I'll pass it, Michelle.
All right, Mr. Barfield, any more questions?
I have no more questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Nowak?
No more questions, Judge. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Zavala?
Nothing further.
Okay. All right then, Mr. Trout, any additional witnesses?
No additional witnesses, Your Honor.
Department rest?
Department rest.
All right, then, Mr. Barfield?
I have no additional witnesses, as my client's already testified, Judge.
Okay. Do you rest at this time?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Nowak?
Rest, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, Ms. Zavala, any witnesses to call?
No witnesses, Your Honor. I rest.
Okay, everybody close?
Close.
Your
Yes,
Honor,
Your
I'd like to make a statement if I can.
Sure. I'll allow anybody that wants to make some closing remarks, that's fine. Do you want to go first, Mr. Trout, or?
I'll go last if everybody else has statements they'd like to make.
Mr. Barfield, any closing remarks?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll make a brief closing, Your Honor. Your Honor, I think it's been established that this is a child that is suffering from autism. Obviously, my client has pled in this particular case, accepted responsibility for her actions in regards to what brought about this case, and is on probation. There's not been any motions to revoke. As far as we know, she's complying with probation. She is going to counseling. Yes, she got a late start, but by all accounts, she's maintained stable employment. She's maintained stable housing. We heard testimony from the caseworker themselves that has been in the home, said there's no danger in the home where she currently is. She says she has access. She has access to transportation. She has learned from the benefits of the counseling in this particular case. Therefore, I believe that termination of her parental rights would be an extreme solution to this particular case. I would make, I do understand we have the order in the deferred adjudication. I would ask the court to take any ruling under advisement to allow time to get clarification from the district judge as to what the judge meant. I didn't figure we'd need to subpoena a district judge to testify in a court proceeding. We interpreted the language one way. Certainly it could be interpreted another way, because I do think it's a key issue in the case. And that would be my summation, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay. Mr. Nowak, I'm guessing you probably don't have any closing remarks, but I'll allow you to make some if you do.
Mine will be really, really fast. Please just terminate based upon the affidavit only, Judge. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Okay,
I'm talking about Mr. Meeks, by the way.
I understand.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, Ms. Vala.
Your Honor, I do believe that my position's pretty clear. We've got a nonverbal 4-year-old who was very much injured. She was a nonverbal 3-year-old who could have gotten assistance much earlier if she had been simply taken to the doctor. We've got a situation where, yes, some boxes have been checked, but the things that we need to make sure have been corrected before a nonverbal young child could be placed in have not been done. This is not a 16-year-old who can feed themselves and transport themselves and talk to anybody about what's been wrong. Delfinia can't even tell you when she's hungry. And it especially concerns me that no one in the home will cooperate. I don't know how we place a child back in who's had very little contact with mom over this last year, 2 months of 1-hour visits, and then to simply place her in a home full of strangers who all have CPS and criminal history. I just can't get there. And I don't believe that's in the best interest of the child. And it is my recommendation at this point that parental rights be terminated at this time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Zavala. All right, Mr. Trout.
Your Honor, you know the department's position on this. I would state that we have a situation, as Ms. Zavala stated, where you have a nonverbal 3-year-old that came into care with multiple injuries. The mother's way of handling it when that happened, she thought it was appropriate to bite her child in the middle of a park in broad daylight. And the other injuries that were sustained to the child. Mother has pled to those. She states she's taken responsibility for it. She's checked some boxes and worked some services, but you're still seeing decision-making that would not be in the best interest of the child. You know, you would think a mother who's trying to get her child back would not be defined about who, the type of people she is around, who she is living with, and their backgrounds. She stated in testimony, some of them she doesn't even know all their backgrounds, but she lives with them and thinks that they would be appropriate for this child to be placed back with. I understand she's checked some boxes, she's worked some services. The courts have ruled substantial compliance is not compliance with the family plans of service. She has had a year to work these services. She waited till the last 3 months to start working these services, all the way up to the very last day. There was testimony as far as finding out what type of help she needs and if there are any services further required. We have no idea because mother waited so late to get these things done. We have no idea if the psychological that was completed yesterday is going to have recommendations as to what mom may need to further help her in order to raise a child that has these issues. I do not believe it's a safe place to be placing a child back into. She's doing great where she is. There are multiple grounds that I believe have been proven up and have been shown to the court that would substantiate the termination of the parental rights as to mom, and I would ask the court to find under those grounds. And as to dad, the affidavit of relinquishment and solely on the affidavit of relinquishment. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, then at this time, I will adjudicate Keith Meeks as the father of Delfina Meeks and establish the parent-child relationship between the two of them. Mr. Meeks was personally served in this matter. He's had counsel. He did not challenge paternity in the case. Quite to the contrary, I think all contact with him was he basically acknowledged to everybody that he was the father. But I don't see that he's been adjudicated, and I had him put in as an alleged. So if I'm incorrect about that, somebody correct me real quickly.
I think you're correct, Judge.
Okay. All right, then I do find by clear and convincing evidence that it is in the best interest of the child Delfina Meeks to terminate the parental rights between the father, Keith Meeks, and the child based solely on his voluntary affidavit of relinquishment of parental rights pursuant to Texas Family Code 161.001, subsection B1, the K grounds, and then also just the best interest of the child or the B2. I find by clear and convincing evidence that it's in the best interest of the child, Delfina Meeks, to terminate the parental rights between the child and the mother, Tessa Helms, based on Texas Family Code section 161.001, subsection B1, the D, the E, the L grounds, and that would be subsection 9, the injury to this child, and the O grounds, failure to complete the services, and the best interest under 161.001B2. The question regarding what's meant in the order of deferred adjudication is moot at this point, since I've found clear and convincing evidence that it's in the best interest to terminate her rights. I'm going to name the department as permanent managing conservator, and I will dismiss all court-appointed attorneys after the de novo and appellate timeframes expire. Counsel, as always, if you're instructed to file a notice of appeal, please do not do so until a final order has been signed and adopted by the referring court. And of course, your de novo timeframe does begin to run since I've rendered it open court. Ms. Helms, you have another child that is involved with the department. You still have a significant amount of time with which to demonstrate that you've changed your decision-making about children. I don't want this to discourage you from continuing going forth in that case. Quite the contrary, I hope this will do nothing but encourage you to do what you need to do for the other child. I just simply can't keep Delfinia, waiting until that happens, and I don't see that that has happened at this point in time. All right, then, I will see those still involved back. Of course, Ms. Zavala will remain in the case, as the child's attorney and guardian ad litem. I'll see everybody back for the first review hearing, September 11th of 2025. That'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. All right, I appreciate everybody. Thank you for the break, that we had to take today, and, or at least for some of you, not all of you. And, we will adjourn.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Judge. And that de novo starts as of today, correct?
Yeah, your time frame will run.
That's what I thought. Okay, I just always ask just to double check. Don't want to
Understand.
file pleadings that get thrown back in my face too early. All right. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank y'all.
All right.
Thank you, Judge.